Hello, welcome back. I am continuing the reading of The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. This is the second part of chapter 21, and we are starting on page 317 at the part of More Final Than Atlantis. We're almost finished. One more chapter after this, and it too will come in a couple of parts. Uh, the information is very, very interesting and really applies to us now. So without further ado, thank you for listening, and here we go. More final than Atlantis. There are some distinct differences between the Earth changes of Atlantis day and what is going to take place now. First, we cannot escape them as the children did when they fled Atlantis. But also, there are various possibilities for intervention during these great Earth changes. It may be that we will even have some outside help. Many things are not determined fully. Free will choices are still dominant, particularly in whether or not there will be nuclear annihilation, which would create a much bigger mess if it is more than a very limited warring or an act of violence. So, is there anything we can do about any of it? Yes and no. We can't stop the purification. It is badly needed anyway, and we shouldn't want to stop it. We shouldn't see it as a bad thing. But can we do anything about it for ourselves to survive it? For what? That is the most important question. Do you want to survive to save your selfish, separate self, or to help be here to truly free others and point them to the way back to oneness and free them from their selfish, separate selves? But to answer your question directly, yes, and no to make inner preparations. There are some physical preparations one could make, and perhaps that only will be done by you or others. I will not be involved because I will be gone by then. But think. What good are physical preparations if you don't make the spiritual ones? What's the point? Raise your consciousness first. Then help others do the same if you wish to. There is nothing more to say. I have heard people discuss possible safe areas, places of refuge during the coming changes. I know of many areas that will be more or less free from earthquakes, etc., more or less safe, barring nuclear war and the like. But I tell them what my teachers told me, and his told him, and the ancients told us all. Make your spiritual changes your priority first. Raise your consciousness first. After you have done that, if you still want to pursue safer physical areas, then look for areas where people who have higher consciousness are living. That doesn't mean where the people with the greatest knowledge are, but rather where those with the greatest kindness and harmlessness are. The greater the consciousness concentrated in a certain area, the greater the chance of being safe. Even on a one-to-one basis, the ground could be falling out from under your neighbor's feet, while under your feet the ground is lifting you above a flood or tidal wave. Raise your consciousness first, and then it won't even matter what happens to you. And like he said, we're all going to die someday anyway. And regardless of how Do you want to be prepared to go on or be stuck with karma that forces you back to a life on earth over and over again? A life of pain and pleasure, or just possibly just pain on an earth that is very different than what you know now. For one thing, at this time, because of free will factors, we still don't know if the earth of the immediate future will even be inhabitable. But regardless of whether it is or not, the main thing you can do is to become a truly good person, an unselfishly loving person. If there is to be any intervention, the flow, God, hierarchy, help, extraterrestrial, or whatever, the humans who have changed to a new vibration, a harmless, caring, unselfishly loving vibration, are the people who will be safe, one way or another. If the earth becomes uninhabitable, there is not intervention, those who have transcended this plane by becoming unselfishly loving can go on to a higher plane. And if you were a higher being from outside this plane, intervening and saving people, who would you choose to save? The selfish who live out of harmony with the universe and nature, or the unselfishly loving who live in harmony with the rest of the universe? The unselfish ones who are harmless and helpful to all life in the universe. Exactly. But many people think they will be saved from the tribulations. Indeed. But many people think they will be saved from the tribulations. What a surprise they have in store if they don't change. There are many people out there who are under the delusion that they are going to be saved from facing the trials that are coming for us all. And they think that they don't need to do anything except perhaps talk about it or believe in this or that. Some think Jesus will save them without them becoming really good people just because they believe in Jesus. Some think aliens will save them. Some think they'll go to the fourth dimension. The biggest hole I see with these hopeful, wishful thinking scenarios is the lack of personal responsibility that they allow for. Some believe that only whatever they think or believe or accept will totally create their reality. So they think that if they don't give energy to earth changes or the coming chaos and destructions, they will not be subject to them because they did not create them for themselves. So they won't have to experience them. But they take this precept to the extreme. And this precept is only half of a paradox, only partially true. When you meet one of those Peniel, or when you write in the future, tell those who believe that way that if you really don't believe you can be harmed by earth changes or anything else that you don't allow into your consciousness or draw to yourselves, here is a simple test of how well it works or how up to the challenge you are. Try this, why don't you? Believe you can't have a car accident. Otherwise, you'll attract one to yourself. If you believe you can have a car accident, or you can have car accidents, then once you get that into your head, I dare you to try driving through red lights all the time. I'm not really recommending or inciting people to do this. I'm trying to make a point with a very real scenario. The fact is, if you drive through intersections against red lights constantly, you are going to suffer the consequences. Whether you believe some will save you from an accident or not. Don't believe me? See what happens if you are foolish enough to try it. And why not? And why wouldn't you try it? Because you know there is likely to be a car coming through the other way, even if you've never seen it, even if you can't see it. The changes that have happened, the changes that have happened to the earth and are coming back to us from what has been done is just as certain as traffic coming the other way. We are talking about reality here and universal reality. Our species has been running the red lights of nature. They have run the big red lights and broken universal law. You personally have probably done so also, unless you are already enlightened. Most of the people of the world have run the big red lights, and there are simply no way of escaping the consequences of breaking universal law. Unlike the earth, with man-made laws, there is ultimate justice in this universe. That is karma. Interestingly enough, when Zayn came to the United States in his later years, he would drive in city traffic as fast as a car would go, through red lights and all, and never had an accident or even a ticket. Zayn, however, truly understood universal law, was one with the universal spirit, and thus he was just part of the universal flow, for real. He didn't just profess or lightly believe in some philosophy or spiritual principle. He had become. Father, why do so many people believe they will be saved from all these things at the last minute, despite a lack of logic regarding there being any substance to the various fantastic theories of unearned salvation and a preponderance of evidence that we are facing a real ecological and socio-political disaster? The illogical salvation theories are what many people desperately want to hear and believe, so they believe. They buy into this mental, emotional, I don't know how to pronounce that word, this religious fire insurance. Why? Why do they close their eyes when opening them is their best chance to get through whatever happens? Simple: fear and laziness. The selfish separate self doesn't want to die and let the inner being take its place on the throne, nor does it want to face its karma or the reality of the karma created by what has been done to the entire earth. So they exhibit the ostrich syndrome. They hide their heads and think they're safe. They do this because they're so full of fear that they don't think objectively or logically. Thus, they are more than happy to accept these unfounded theories of salvation without need for personal purification, enlightenment, or responsibility. Just think for a minute. Why would we deserve such unjust salvation? Do you really believe the universe works that way? Do you not think there are universal laws that govern the functioning of all things? Do you think you can break those laws and nothing will happen? What alien or higher being who really is a higher being is going to save parasites that are so destructive, so disharmonious to nature and universal flow? Parasites, that's what all unenlightened humans are. destructive, inharmonious parasites, or like a virus or bacterial infection in the body of the earth. So, what if the destructive parasites are ordinary, relatively nice people with good beliefs, even the metaphysical beliefs of or religious beliefs such as many religions have? Do you know what the universe response to that is? So what? If there is going to be any outside help from the predicted return of the Christ to the Space Brothers to whatever, the logic is that they are only going to save those who are truly different than the rest, truly worthy of saving. Meditation is not going to do it for you. And just having a lot of metaphysical knowledge or religious beliefs certainly doesn't make you worth saving. Neither does being a relatively good person. If that's what you think, you'll have a big and unnecessary shock when the changes come to your door and you stare death in the face, only to realize you aren't ready when you could have been. He was getting very intense, and a crowd of other students had gathered around by this time. He looked around at at them all and pointed, but he was also pointing and speaking to all humanity. How many of you can say you are truly giving? That you care about others more than yourself? That you love unselfishly all the time? And that you have truly and completely transcended your selfish, separate self and your physical body and mind? Not many. And if you haven't changed in that way, you'd better get busy, and you'd better make it your top priority. Drop everything else you are doing in life and get busy with what is really important and eternal before it's too late. Be brave and take a complete honest look within yourself. Are you truly good enough to live in a perfect, paradisical world? Look for it and see the things about you that still need perfecting. Be glad when you find the imperfections. It means you've seen them early enough to do something about them. Face the things you have been avoiding. Do the things that inside you know you must do. Change for the better so that you can save yourself. So you can be saved. So you can go on to a wonderful place, whether it be on a physical plane or a spiritual one. And if you think you have truly changed and transcended yourself, consider this. Those who achieve the death of the selfish separate self and thusly attain enlightenment, universal consciousness, either leave this plane or stay to be a true teacher and help others achieve the same. When you meet those who only have knowledge and only tell of wisdoms and truths by moving their lips and taking about it, or worse, telling people they don't need to do anything but think positive, or believe in Jesus, or just believe in anyone or anything, you tell them this: you will not be saved, nor can you be helping other people to be saved. Example, helping them become truly loving and enlightened while just disseminating theories of don't worry, just go with the flow, and don't bust your buns changing to be an unselfishly loving person. Just have positive thoughts and faith you will be taken to a paradise in the rapture or the fourth dimension, or to be a wonderful new planet you can trash again. Or, don't worry, the Space Brothers will fix all the toxic waste and neutralize the bombs. Surprise, surprise. You must act. You must change. You must live as the Grand Master taught us through his examples on Earth. All of us were so moved and stunned that we were silent for at least 5 minutes. Years later, a musician named Neil Young wrote a post-apocalyptic song called After the Gold Rush, referring to the gold rush of a nuke explosion, not the romantic gold mining days of the Old West. It was based on visions. Here are excerpts from some of the lyrics. I was lying in a burned out basement with the full moon in my eyes. I was thinking about what a friend had said. I was hoping it was a lie. There were children crying and colors flying all around the chosen ones, all in a dream. The loading had begun, flying Mother Nature's silver seed to a new home in the sun. Are you one of the silver seeds? Or will you be watching the deserving chosen ones? The silver seeds leave you behind as you recite your beliefs. Clutch whatever the holy books of your religion is, or your book about the Pleiadians, while you wonder why you aren't going to. Along the same subject, one day I had asked Zayn about all the references I had read about God's chosen people. This is what he had to say. The ancient teachings say the chosen ones are not chosen because of genetics, their heritage, beliefs, being God's favorite brats, or through knowledge. They are the ones who have made themselves chosen, vibrationally changed by their own hard work and self-sacrifice. Thus, if there is intervention in the hard times or last days of life as we know it on Earth, or last days of life as we know it now on Earth, the true chosen will be recognized by their enlightened, selflessly loving vibrational signature. And if there is no intervention, the chosen, those who chose to change for real, will still have vibrationally mandated their rise to a higher plane of existence. When the time comes to leave here, because they are the ones who have gone through the fires of purification in order to become totally harmless and giving, you had better get real. You had better wake up. You had better dispel your self-centeredness. I'm working on it. Like I said before, I read about earth changes even before coming to the monastery. And sometimes I would talk to my friends about it because I could feel what was coming. But they said to me, how can you live in such fear? What can you say to someone who looks at you that way? I say, who is it that is living in the fear? The ones who is able to see and deal with the obvious realities? Or the ones who block them out and doesn't want to see it, thus doesn't? Those who cannot see the writing on the wall are the ones living in fear. Who is more afraid and wiser? The ostrich who sticks his head in the hole in the ground to avoid the predator about to eat him? Or is the squirrel who stores his nuts for the winter, knowing he may need them because of the dire conditions to come? And also tell them this: whether the earth of the future is habitable or not, you should be prepared to leave this plane, leave your body. Even if there are no earth changes, someday you will die anyway. And to do it right, you should have experienced death, transcended yourself before. And to live right, to attain universal consciousness, to become a fully unselfishly loving being, you must also have experienced death beforehand. Again, the last chapter is part of this book, discusses the death experience. Excuse me. Lots of water, but few cups. The heaviest teachings were yet to come. They were something I was yet to learn about that hadn't even crossed my ostrich mind. I guess I had a safety net, even in my own relatively open-minded beliefs. What was the safety net? Since I believed in reincarnation and knew we kept getting chances to get it right, at least there was that. But then Zayn told me about the ancient Atlantean teachings regarding the next historical cycle. The primary difference between the time of Atlantis and now is that those who are not free from their karma, free from the need to reincarnate, will have no bodies to return to after the changes. That was a shocker. It took me a few minutes to assimilate and grasp all that it meant. Zayn could see this and just waited until I recovered. Then he went on. Many people will die as a result of these forthcoming earth changes, leaving far fewer human inhabitants on Earth afterwards. There is even the possibility of total extinction of human life on Earth. But let's say there are still humans living on Earth, which is likely. These people will have gone through major changes, physically, mentally, and spiritually. These people will have gone through, these will have the seeds of a new human race. Their consciousness will be of oneness with the universal spirit. This will be a greater new age, but think about your lessons regarding universal law. The universal law that dictates that vibration will seek its own level, will make a sort of nature selection of who will be able to reincarnate. You know the teachings on conception of a child and consciousness. Thus, those who do not free themselves from selfishness would not be of the consciousness that would allow them to incarnate in the offsprings of the new higher consciousness inhabits of the new earth. Not for a very long time, at least. What about materialization rather than birth? What about it? We are able to do that when we first come to this plane because our consciousness and nature was much of the spiritual plane. And certainly anyone with such consciousness can do that. But what are we talking about here? the selfish material bond masses of the earth plane, who of them will be capable of materialization? So, what will happen to those who don't make it? Since the earth will not be an option for them, and since they are still bound to the selfish separate self and the material plane, something else must happen to them, because nothing is ever truly nothing is ever truly destroyed or lost in this universe. Things only change form. So what will happen to them? The ancient teachings say they will be incarnated within the bowels of Saturn and live in a lava-like state for millions of years, awaiting the right condition for them to be able to return to the earth to try to get it right. I was stunned, speechless. The New Age. And what of a new age on Earth? The possibilities exist, but it is important to keep in mind that we are spiritual beings. That is our true state, our real state. We are not this physical baggage, this animal we inhabit while on Earth. We fail here, but we do not really belong here. The earth is not our home. So, if you really achieve the kind of spiritual enlightenment that would entitle you to be a citizen of such a glorious new age in which everyone has Christ consciousness, and then you are given the choice to either stay here or return to angelic bodies and travel the universe in bliss in heaven, what would you choose? It wouldn't really matter, but most people do enjoy traveling if they can afford it and don't have insecurity issues. But right now, there are only two valid reasons for being here, other than for a visit. Again, we fell from our spiritual state here and took on this physical state as an aspect of our separation from the One, making the physical form part of our separate self. So first, we need to be here until we break free of our bonds to the earth and our selfish separate selves. So the first valid reason to be here is because we must, while we work towards attaining enlightenment and oneness again, then once that is attained, we are free to go. But the compassion that brought us to our rebirth in oneness also makes us want to stay and help others who are still slaves to their selves and bound to the earth. Thus, staying to help others is the only other valid reason for living on earth at this time. Help wanted. What is needed most today? First, that people be warned that they will be dealing with the repercussions of their actions, and that humans as a whole will be dealing with the grand repercussions on an earth-wide scale. What is of primary importance is that you are doing one of two things: helping to awake others to spirit within them and without them, or developing that awareness yourself. You cannot give that which you do not have. And this is in the italic text. The greatest service you can do for the universal spirit is to serve others. The greatest service to others is awakening them to the universal consciousness that lies within them and helping them free themselves from their selfish, separate self. Thus, we first need to prepare ourselves that we may be an instrument in helping our brothers and sisters prepare. What is meant by prepare? To become one with the universal spirit. To be one spiritually, mentally, and physically. We must be transcendent of selfishness, regardless of what takes place around us. Many are making the move back to the land towards self-sufficiency in order to better prepare for the coming changes and to live in harmony with nature. This is wise if it is in harmony with universal flow rather than spurred on by selfish motivation. Although living in harmony with nature, with the land and elements is a normal inclination, when the physical is more in tune with spirit, ultimately you must be where you are needed most for the universal work, not where you want to be or where it is most natural to be. For some, it may be the countryside. For some, in the city. For some, a foreign country. What are your motives for being where you are? What are you doing? First, you have to do it yourself, or you won't have the ability to really help others. People should practice what they preach and teach by example. Okay, that was the end of chapter 21. How was that? Eye-opener for real. I've been reading, and you've been listening to The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. You can get this book on Amazon. That's where I got it. Those of you who are wondering, it was around $30. I did see someone else selling it at a higher price, which, I feel is ridiculous. Get the book. Give it as a gift. Get it for yourself. Read it. Reread it. As much as I have gone through this, every single time, it's still new information. It's still valuable. So thank you for taking the time to listen. Share this with somebody. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful. So until next time, we will be on chapter 22 on page 324 at the part of the death experience. Okay, we're going to learn about that. So until then.